It's my pleasure to introduce Patricia Fripp, the speaker for all reasons. Patricia is a National Speakers Association past president, and she has a wonderful business coaching other speakers in the National Speakers Association and in industry. Patricia, would you like to introduce our speaker today?
You bet I would. Well, Derek Arden, who is with us from London, always likes to tell the story about how we became friends when he was and continues to be my UK chauffeur. I first met our speaker when he sent me an email saying, I will be picking you up at the airport and you will recognize me because I will be winking at you. As I consider myself a mature hot babe, I immediately liked him before we met. As Brian has visited us several times, most of you probably noticed he winks at everybody all the time. And that, of course, is part of the story. He poses the question to us, do you have blind spots? And what if our biggest blind spot could become our greatest strength? Brian's blind spot resulted in brain surgery. It changed him so much that he wrote the book entitled, Sometimes It Does Take a Brain Surgeon. Brian is the founder and CEO of A Radical Vision. His mission is to help people embrace their own personal blindness to achieve a greater vision for their lives. Brian was born and raised in Northwest Ohio as the son of a tomato farmer and the youngest of 10 children. At age 10, he was diagnosed to have a brain malformation. For the rest of the story, to discuss blink, turn blind spots into strengths. Get your jazz hands ready, all the way from NSA, Ohio, Brian Wagner. Take it away, Brian.
Brian, you've got to come see this. It's the registration for the Elmwood Royals football camp. You've always wanted to play football, and you've always wanted to be an Elmwood Royal. This is your chance. Wow. Mom was more excited than I was, but I was excited. That intro was brought to you by Patricia Fripp. So I was excited. I got to go play football with all my friends. I mean, as a 10-year-old boy in 1977, for those of you that don't like to do math, that makes me 53. But as a 10-year-old boy in 77, I'd be out in the front yard with the football. Okay, so this isn't the real football. My wife won't let me have real football. It's just a nerve. So she said I'd make a mess. Anyways, so I'd be in the front yard playing football by myself. And I'd be, hut one, hut two, hike. And I'd hike the ball to myself. And then I would hand the ball off to myself. If I wanted to switch it up, I would throw the ball to myself. Usually I scored, but not always. So the football was the biggest thing that we had going on for me. I mean, I really wanted to be a football player. But when I went to football camp, the third day of the camp came and I was blindsided. I don't know what happened, but I do now, but I didn't know at that point. My mom rushed me to the hospital, and because I had a really bad headache, and I passed out. Well, she got me to the hospital, and there the doctor said, that I had what's called hydrocephalus. That's syphilis, not syphilis. I was 10. Well, anyway, so I had to go in for surgery right away, and I had this tube put in my brain, put in my skeleton, on the top of my skeleton, underneath my skin, that runs all the way down, and I still have it to this day. it drains the excess cranial fluid from my brain to my abdomen, which is what hydrocephalus is. So at the end, it ended up working out that I needed to have brain surgery. I need to have this surgery in order to be better. But what happened was the doctor came in a few days later to my room and he said, "Mr. Wagner, how you doing?" "I'm doing well. I'm doing well. When can I get back to football camp? I just want to get back to football." "I'm sorry, Mr. Wagner, but your football career is over." "Over? How could it be over? It hadn't even started yet. Over?" That's the first time somebody said to me, "Son, you just need to go live your life." So that's what I did. So I want to ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up? Do me a favor, put it in the chat box. If you can, that would be great. We'll pause for a little bit. I'll give you about 30 seconds, but while we're paused, I'll also be talking. So that's a part of what happens here. You know, with the Breakfast Club, I am so appreciative of your time and all that you've done for me, but I can't tell you how important it is for us all to understand what sets us apart. So the first thing is understanding what we wanted to be when we grew up, but then where did we grow up? Where did we go after that? So, oh, good. I see a lot of comments coming in. National Geographic photographer, very cool. Oh, all kinds of good. Air traffic controller, hairstyle. You were a hairstylist. You did well, Patricia. A doctor. Oh, wow. Very nice. Thank you so much for replying. A lawyer. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Well, thank you for that. So the next thing I want to ask you is, my clicker is quick. The next thing I want to ask you is what sets you apart? So I know what sets me apart. And a lot of people might think it's my eye. It's my wink, but it's not my wink. What sets me apart is my positive personality. And I'm able to share my story with other people in order to help them have better lives. That's what I do. And I love being able to do that. So what is it that sets you apart? I want you to drift off for the next 15 minutes, and then we'll come back to that here in a second. I was given a gift. My gift was, after all this, at the age of 43, I went blind. How can that be a gift? Well, it was a gift because it told me what I should be talking about. It told me how I should be helping other people. It told me how I should serve. And that's what all this is all about, is being able to serve other people. In anything we do, if we can serve other people, we will have a happier and more successful life. That is what I know for sure. So for me, when I went blind at the age of 43 because of a cavernous malformation, a malformed blood vessel in my brainstem. It caused me to have two eyelids that wouldn't go open, and then my eyes don't go the right direction. So I don't drive very much. Thank you very much. I'm sure being in San Francisco, it doesn't really matter that much to you, but still, for my own safety, I don't drive. And that's what's allowed me to be able to, that vision has allowed me to know what I talk about and to know how I serve other people. So think of how you can best serve other people. Going through life, I had many encouragers. Going through this process, I had many encouragers. Who was your biggest encourager in your life? I'd love to hear about it. Also, put that in the chat if you would. Who was your biggest encourager? Tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it. As you're doing that, I'm going to keep going. So one thing that I'll tell you is that I had many, many encouragers, but the one encourager that was probably the most significant was my daughter, Jess. She was 13 years old when I had brain surgery in order to have I thought I was going to get my vision back. get my eyesight back. Well, what I got was vision instead. But she wrote me a letter, and it's pretty special. And I'd like to share it with you. Dear Dad, happy Dad's Day. I hope you have a great day because you definitely deserve it. All the cards and TV commercials always say, my dad's the best. But they're lying. You're the best ever. Sure, other people's dads are great. They're younger than you, and they're funnier, and they're sportier. But you've got something that they don't have. Bravery. Even after everything you've been through, you still get out of bed in the morning. You still joke around and play with us and cook on the grill, even though you only have half of one good eye. But you do more still. You teach me that even though you go through the toughest, most grueling things, if you just believe that God is right there with you through everything, believe that everything turns out okay in the end, you'll make it out alive. Not always unscathed, but alive. And give me that hope, that sense of belief. Belief. Well, I take that over a dad with two good eyes. Anything. Love, 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 love. Jess. When's the last time you received a letter like that? I got a better question. When's the last time you wrote a letter like that? Well, remember, when I went to Phoenix, Arizona, I had to go there for one specific doctor. That was why I went to Phoenix. I had to have brain surgery by this guy. He was the subject matter expert. He was the one. He was the one guy, the one subject matter expert that I needed at that time in my life. Who was the one person for you? Who was that one that helped you get from point A to point B or to get to the next level? There's always somebody that you have in your life that was just that teacher or that coach, that mentor, whoever it was, that Patricia Fripp. Maybe there's other people that you have in your life that you need to recognize. So much like Jess did, Jess told me to stop comparing myself to other people. Sure, other people's dads are great, but they're not as great as you. So she told me to stop comparing myself to other people. She told me to stop worrying about who I wanted to be and think about who I was. I was her dad. She just wanted me to be her dad. So I want you to write that letter now as well, just like Jess did. It doesn't have to be in the same format, but you have somebody in mind. I know you do. So keep that person in mind and write that letter. Write that name down right now. And write the letter today. Maybe write during as I'm talking. You can do that too. It's okay. But remember that this letter is going to change that person's life. Isn't that awesome? But what's more than that is, it's going to change your life. Because you are going to become an encourager. An encourager to encourage other encouragers. That's what I want for you. I think that would be so great for you to be able to be an encourager like that. Well, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Now, as I was going through this process, I did have several jobs, many IT sales jobs. In IT, or information technology, there's a lot of different things that are going on, and there's typically a sales guy, which would be me, and then there's a smart guy that goes on different meetings. Well, in this one meeting we went to, I had gone into the customer's location, and I asked the question to the lady in the guard shack, I said, can I go see and Bill? I'm there to see Bill, And so she said, sure. And so she started to write down my name, or she started to fill out a name tag for me, and she wanted to know how to spell my name. And she said, what's your name? I said, Brian. And how do you spell that? I said, it's Brian with one I. Now, I didn't think it was that funny, really, at the time, but smart guy here, I thought he was going to pee his pants. He loved it. So ever since then, I've come to the idea, or the realization that that's who I am. My name is Brian with one eye. That's who I identify with. That's what makes me. I like to have fun. I like to, and it's at my expense. But who is it that you are? Who have you changed to be? And you need to recognize that you can be that person as well. Because if you just accept it, you're going to be able to be more successful. You're going to be able to be happier in life. Well, there's a lot of happy people that I have, and the happy people and the supporters that I have are phenomenal. So this is a picture of some of the people that are in my life. So this is my immediate family, my daughter and my two sons, and then my beautiful wife, Connie, who Patricia Fripp also refers to as Mrs. Wink. Well, so we took this picture one year, a couple years after I had surgery, and I said, I just wish that I wasn't the only one winking in this picture. I said, next year, can we have this picture taken? And will you all wink with me? What? Sure, Dad, we'll wink with you. So the next year they did. And here's how it turned out. Now, some of them are better winkers than others. But this got me thinking. And this trip to meet with Patricia Fripp got me thinking. I wonder if there's something more to that. So I started a Wink University, and I began to wink with people. All the conferences that I would go to, I would wink with the board of directors. I would take pictures, and then the next day when we'd have the presentation, I would wink. I would show these pictures of me winking with Wagner. It was what it was all about. So the wink is all about understanding the positive personality that I have and not making fun of me. But the Wink University is one of those things that it's helping a lot of people. So I posted in the chat box different downloads that you can have, but there's the Wink download, the Wink workbook. In the Wink workbook, you're going to understand that what we have is an acronym. And the acronym WINK stands for, W is for why is it important, the I is for intentionality, the N is for new way of thinking, new way of looking at life, and the K is for kinesthetic. So I'm going to talk to you about each of those items here briefly, and there are questions that go along with this. So first off, I want to show you that this slide, that why is it important, what makes you unique. That's what the W stands for. So for me, I think how important it is to be able to show my positive personality. And I want to make sure that I show my positive personality every day. Now, there are things that sometimes get in the way of that. Typically for me, it's the morning news. The morning news is a sucker for me to get into because it's really easy to just come downstairs, turn on a coffee, I do my stretches and hit the TV button. But if I don't do that, I find that I have a much better day, a much more positive experience. And now there are studies that show the people that watch the morning news are 27% more likely to have a bad day. I find that interesting. Well, other things you may do, you may want to be, you may want to lose weight, or maybe you want to eat healthier, or maybe you want to work out. Maybe there's other things you want to be more, you want to have a better relationship with your kids. Maybe you want to have a better relationship with your spouse. So that's what makes you unique. That's why you're doing what you're doing. But it's important for you to understand that sometimes things get in the way. So what do you want to do? What do you want to get from today in general? Or what do you want to get from life in today? Who are you? Who are you? What's your goal? And why is that important to you? The eye, like I said, in regards to sometimes things get in the way. For me, the morning news gets in the way. And that allows me, if I'm intentional about it, if I'm intentional about not staying or staying away from the morning news, then I can have a much better chance at being positive. So what is it for you? Now, you may have a situation where you are not always true to your diet, or maybe you're not true to your workout schedule. Maybe you have problems staying focused on different things. Well, what gets in the way? Think about what you can start doing. Maybe what you can stop doing. Those things might allow you to understand that there's different things that get in the way of you being able to do that. That's why the Wink workbook is so important. Is for you to be able to understand, this is what I want to be, and this is how I want to do it, and this are the things that are getting in my way. So what can you do differently? Think about how important it is to understand the difference that we all make in our lives. So for me, I had an office downstairs. I'm in my house, my home basement, and on the other side of this wall, there's a 100 square foot space that used to be my office. Well, I'm like, Connie, I said to my wife, Connie, said, I need a new space. I need more space. And so I'm walking around one day with this tape measure, and I'm measuring things upstairs, and she's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I want to move my space, so I'm looking for something different. She said, why don't you just go to the other side of the wall where it's open? You don't have anything in there, and put your office in there. So it takes me from a 100 square foot space to a 300 square foot space. That's a great idea. So that's what I did. And that was a new way of thinking, a new way of looking at life. So from your perspective, think of how maybe you can sit at a different spot at the breakfast table or the lunch table, wherever you sit. Maybe you can get a different perspective on life. Get a different perspective when the phone rings. What happens? Well, think about your closet. You may have your shirts on one side and your pants on the other side. Well, what if you switched them up? What would that do? That creates new lanes for your mind to think about different items that you have in your life. What makes you uniquely qualified in your intended goal? What is it that makes you different from anybody else? If you can realize your uniqueness, if you can realize what sets you apart, then you're going to be able to be more successful. So, what do you see as your strength? And what do you see as your weakness? What is going to allow you to be able to get past where you're at right now? If you can understand that, then you're going to be able to go so much farther. And then the K is for kinesthetic. And you can't have the win, W-I-N, you can't have the win without the K. Once you have the K, you begin to implement what you're working on. You begin to implement what you've written down. That's why the workbook is so important, because you've written down everything in there about what you want to do. So kinesthetic means taking action. And that's one of the things that I've prided myself on. And I know you've done a lot with that as well. But if you can be kinesthetic with everything you're doing, then it's going to make all the difference in the world. So what gets in the way? what's that one obstacle? What action can you take to move towards your goal? And then what physical action can you take to to make the win? There's a lot here, and I've gone through it very, very fast, I realize. But think of how you can all wink. And if you can wink with me, that would be great, because that is what makes all the difference in our lives, if we can understand how important it is to wink. And the Wink University is out there. I'm Brian with one eye. Now go be awesome.
Hey, Brian, that was awesome. That was amazing. I liked the part. One of my favorite parts in there was after you read the letter from that beautiful letter from your daughter. Tony, can you get that? Yeah, Brian, after you read that beautiful letter by your daughter, I thought that moment of silence following that was so appropriate, and it was so beautiful. Hold on a second.
Yes, Patricia?
Of everyone in the chapter National Speakers Association of Ohio, how come you, who rarely drive, were sent to pick me up alone? I mean, I can understand you coming with someone like Randall, who is known for his superb driving.
Yeah. Yeah, but I really wanted to be there. I wanted to be able to be with you. I knew that there was so much that I could learn from you, and I was passionate about doing this. And I'm thank you for allowing me to drive you. So there's been other things that have gone on with me beyond this. So the initial blindness. So in the last 2 months, I had some other brain problems, but I won't be driving you again.
Okay, good. What I would like to add, though, your idea of writing these letters and writing letters is so much different than sending emails. But when I was in my 20s, I took the Dale Carnegie course, and one of the exercises was to send letters to people. And so I was in my 20s. I counted maybe, well, anyway, I wrote a letter to my dad. Now, my dad was a wonderful guy, but British dads are not known for their emotion. And when he died, when I was 40, my mother found the letter still in his desk drawer, and he had never shown it to her when it arrived.
Wow. That gives me chills.
Yeah. So it really does make a difference, even for British dads.
Yeah, that's a great story. You one-upped me. That's okay. I love it.
Betty, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. Brian, thank you for a wonderful presentation with a tremendous amount of wisdom and things to think about and contemplate. When in the chat box, I put the person who made a huge difference in my life was the lady I used to babysit for. And over the years, I kind of raised her 3 boys and so forth. And that's how I put my way through college. But she's the one, and her husband, who helped encourage me to go to college, not just a 3-year nursing school. And I remember years later, I was in Florida on the West Coast, and I made a huge effort to drive to the middle of the state where she had moved to say thank you, because she never knew that she was probably the most important person in my professional career and my life. She got me reading books that I never would have read, etc. And she was just blown away because she had no idea the impact that she had on my life. So it's really important to reach out to people and to say thank you and how they did affect. So I really applaud how you reminded us of that. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Betty. Who else has a question?
I do.
Sydney?
Hi.
Hi, Sydney.
Brian, I really thought your presentation was fantastic. At 94 years old, about 40 years ago, I was probably one of the first persons that had laser brain surgery. Nobody knows that. It's in my book. If you can have somebody get the book, read it to you, you'll see some of the things that show them having the brain surgery that I finally decided that I was going to put in the book. The name of the book is From an Orphanage to the Smithsonian. But I thought your presentation was one of the best that I've seen. And I'm going to be putting it on Twitter with the way I want to put it on, plus Facebook and some of the others. Anyway, congratulations. And Patricia, thanks for introducing him. He's terrific.
Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate that. It means a lot. My mom's 91. Sorry, I'm slurring my words. Slur my words. Forgive me. That happened a little bit in my speech as well. So that's a part of the problems that I've had here in the last couple of months. So, but thank you, Sydney. I appreciate that.
You're terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Bill?
Great presentation, Brian. More a comment than a question. Helen Keller once said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. That's the impression I got your message this morning. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it, Bill. Helen Keller knew a little bit about being blind, that's for sure.
Randall, you had your hand up?
Yeah, this is a compliment as well as a comment. The compliment is for Patricia Fripp. Brian and I are in the same Toastmasters club here in Hilliard, Ohio. I've heard several 7-minute pieces of this talk, and Brian has done a great job putting things together, but I can, as I was listening to that and watching him, I could see Patricia Fripp's influence. So I know you folks all know how great she is. And she worked with me on my talk for you folks a few months ago. But again, it's just a compliment to Patricia as well as a compliment to my friend, Brian Wagner.
Yeah. Well, Randall, I appreciate everything you've done for me over the last 10 years. It seems like I've been in Toastmasters and all the help you've given me through NSA. I mean, you're one of those servant people where you know what you're good at. That relationship is one thing, but also the picture taking that you do, that's phenomenal. So that's how you serve, and I think it's a phenomenal way for us all to understand using and that's why I have this show that I do that Craig's going to be on, where I talk about vision alignment and having your vision aligned with your core goals and your core strengths, really. So your vision is to be able to help other people in that way, and you're doing that. So thank you, Randall. I appreciate it.
Joel, I see you have your hand up.
I'd like to add to what everybody else has said. Just a word said in the right place. As a kid growing up, I always was told that I didn't have it, that I had learning disabilities, which they didn't know what it was. They just thought I was retarded. I got in the military and was stationed in a hospital where people started saying, Joel, you go get an education. Nobody had ever said that. And a couple of my friends, one a doctor, the other a nurse, finally said, you could get an education, go to school. And I did. And I finished 3 degrees in 4.5 years.
Wow.
Graduated summa cum laude.
That's great.
But to tell you that what I learned from this experience is that you can tell people things. The problem for us today is we've lost that common feeling, and all we do is text and email. There's nothing like the written word, nothing like putting it down on paper, writing it in ink, and sending it to someone. And in this point in my life, I'm losing friends day after day. And as I refer to it, as we're all on the disassembly line. And so I have several friends who are dying from cancer. And my recent experience has been, what do you say to someone you've just found out is in a hospice? And so what I've started doing is sending thank you cards to say, I appreciate what you did for me. And that's how I'm trying to learn how to say goodbye. But it's all done in writing. And there's nothing like you say, taking those pieces of paper out, being able to hold them. The problem with us is that we write everything in the ether and it's gone. I thought. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joel. I have a comment, and Betty, you can second me on this, maybe help me out a little bit. But there's a legendary story in the real estate business where every year, we have, kudos to the top agents. And some number of years ago, one of the agents that was brought out was somebody that really wasn't a top agent at all. In fact, if you look at the income, his income was much lower than you would expect for a top agent. But what was interesting is he was blind. And I thought that is just amazing. And really, if you think about it, what a great way to sell something, because now you can't see the property. You have to see the property through the eyes of your customer.
Yeah.
And, I just having that kind of vision was just such a key insight into how I should operate my business. And I thought that was a great metaphor for just life in general.
That is awesome. I actually work at the Ohio School for the Blind, so I see what you're talking about, how important it is to understand that from a customer perspective or the end user perspective. Having that different is incredible. So that's incredible.
What other comments do we have?
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay. When I wrote Secrets of Savvy Networking, I always was raised on the thank you note and the handwritten note. So what I did is I wrote two examples, the bad thank you note and the good thank you note. And I thought the editor would take it out because it seemed so remedial. They left it in. And then when I was speaking for one of the major finance firms, the vice president came up and said, "Thank you so much for putting in a sample. I skipped 4th grade and was in gifted classes, and they never taught us how to actually write a thank you note." When I taught here in San Francisco in a gifted program, I taught kids how to write thank you notes. And one of the mothers called me and said, "You taught them how to write friendly letters. There's a form for that." She goes, "My son went away to camp and for the first time in 3 years wrote me a letter in perfect form asking me to send money."
Oh, that's nice. That's no, you're asking for money, but I mean, he knew how to do it. He knew what to do and how to put everything in order to ask for it appropriately, right?
Yes, to me. Brian, I have loved hearing you talk about these letters, these notes. I would get Christmas cards and it would have a printed name on it. Not a "how are you?" "The kids are well," nothing. I always discounted them. And I'm sad to say that not enough schools are teaching cursive anymore.
Right.
And how do you have a handwritten note when you have no handwriting?
Yeah.
Well, Susan, you raised a really good point because, up until your comment, I was thinking, I'm going to share this video with my daughter so she can learn about gratitude. But Tony, can you cut it off right where, Susan's comment is about, asking for money? Can you do that for me? Janice Lippman.
Susan, not only do they not teach cursive, they don't teach a child how to address an envelope, put the excuse my language, put the stamp on it and the return address. And my son to this day is 27. He's obviously very talented, but he still doesn't know how to create a letter in an envelope because everything is texted. But I want to tell you, my husband accuses me of hoarding because I have all the letters that my Nana wrote to me when I was in college, and all the letters we used to write to our cousins And my parents, whenever, when I had moved away, I found all those letters in my mother's house and I have them here. So help me with my hoarding because I don't like to throw away my letters.
Don't throw them away.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of letters saved from when my wife and I were dating. Some of those letters are not G-rated, so my kids haven't seen them yet. I don't know when they will. But yeah, thank you for your comment, James.
Well, Valentine's Day is coming up around the corner, so what a great opportunity for us to pull out the old fountain pens and write notes to our loved ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right here on my desk.
I got a fountain pen.
Craig,
Yes, Betty.
notes have always been, oh, good. Notes have always been so important ever since I went away to college. And I actually started a Christmas letter when I went away to college in 1963. And I wrote it out and then mimeographed it or whatever you did then. And so I still do that. And but this year, what I do is I do a personal letter. So I sent out my personal letter and I couldn't, I'm just overwhelmed with the not being at the office with labels. So I did that with my personal people, hand wrote everything. And I wrote a little something on my letter with photos and so forth. But to my clients, I actually hand wrote a Christmas card to each person with thoughts on it. And not a lot because, and then I hand addressed over 200 envelopes. And it's really hard with arthritis. Hand addressed. I did put a stamp on it though, and I did put a return label. I did not write that, but wow. But I was so pleased with myself for getting my thoughts out. And one client 22 years ago, I sold him a house, said, Betty, you sent us a Christmas card. And so it just reaching out to touch one is so important, even if it's a little note that's handwritten. And my granddaughter, who's 7, just wrote me a thank you note for the clothes I got her for her birthday.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And if you can write those letters and not expect anything in return, oh, that's just freeing. So it's therapeutic to do that. But I mean, to be able to do that and not expect anything in return, that's awesome.
It's just to let them know you're thinking of them. It makes a huge difference in somebody's life.
You know what? Our wonderful museums have notes, Klimt and Syrah. When Fripp and I go to museums, she knows, in the gift store, buy the note cards. People love and remember when they see an art piece. And who could design better than Syrah and Klimt and Monet? And it's a way of supporting our local museum stores. But and by the way, this is my trick. If you write big, you only have to write 2 sentences.
Right. Here's one from the museum right here.
Yeah, there you go.
That is awesome. So I've not been to San Francisco in over 10 years. I hope I can get there someday soon. If I do, and it's all the precautions are down, I would love to be able to spend the morning with you, and I will definitely join the club.
Brian, we're going to take you up on that. But we need a volunteer to be Brian's driver. Anybody?
Patricia. No, that's okay. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Patricia, would you like to add any closing comments?
Well, I think one of the most positive parts of lockdown is that we can see so many of our friends from different states and bring in speakers from different states. So we appreciate, and I am very sorry I forgot to add an excuse for Tim Durkin, who is out getting paid rather than joining us. But anyway, so thank you very much, Brian. And next time I come and speak at your chapter, let's have somebody else drive us and we can sit and talk, and then you can take notes on all my advice.
Okay. And I would also ask if you have any advice for me after this. Please, I mean, I would love to hear about it.